Der nächste Sprecher ist Max Fish. Max Fish ist aus den USA angereist und sie hat das VMMC-Project, also das Voluntary Male Medical Circumcision Experienceproject, initiiert und wird jetzt kurz über ihre Motivation berichten und dann einen kurzen Film zeigen.
Yes, good morning. We're here from 3 continents to speak out about a global issue. Thank you. That affects the world's most vulnerable populations. The poor, the uninformed, children, and many living in Africa. But we can't speak out without having people to listen, so thank you all for coming here to listen to us today. My name is Max Fish. I'm an American from a Jewish Hungarian family that was affected by the Holocaust. My professional background is as an editor for scientific and medical publications. So I'm not used to speaking out in public. I normally work quietly behind my desk, but what I found out there compelled me to raise my voice and speak out publicly against this issue. I'm the founder of the VMMC-Experienceproject. We are a nonprofit organization to empower Africans affected by the American circumcision campaign. VMMC stands for Voluntary Medical Male Circumcision, and this is the policy term that is used for this campaign. And all of the major AIDS relief organizations are behind it. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, UNAIDS, USAID, PEPFAR, and most recently UNICEF. I'm a US citizen, so I actually come from the source of this agenda. The United States is the only developed country whose medical associations endorse circumcision, and also the only developed country that still circumcises the majority of its boys routinely after birth for non-religious reasons. The practice is actually so common in the US that many Americans compare the cutting of the foreskin after birth with the cutting of the umbilical cord. So to many Americans, this is a non-issue. I didn't begin to question circumcision myself until I took a job at a scientific publishing house in Austin, Texas. And we published a number of studies that use dermal fibroblasts, and this is a type of skin cell that is used in biomedical research and also in the production of skin grafts for burn victims and in some cosmetic skin creams. But it wasn't until I encountered a paper from Hong Kong referencing foreskin fibroblasts that I began paying attention to this issue. So China is a known hotspot for illegal organ trafficking, but here was a Chinese study that imported foreskin derivatives from the United States. So I wanted to learn more about this foreskin black market, so I spent the next 6 months uncovering everything I could find out about American infant circumcision. And I actually ended up even more confused than when I started because there are huge contradictions with both the medical and scientific literature. I saw papers highlighting circumcision as a health measure and others pointing to the procedure as an American cultural anachronism. American articles likened it to a vaccination against sexually transmitted infections. But international articles pointed out that circumcised Americans actually have the highest rate of sexually transmitted infections in the developed world, and this includes HIV. The origins of circumcision in American medicine were even more contentious. I learned about a medical trend from the late 1800s called orificial surgery. So that is surgery of the genital orifices of children to prevent sexual excitation. So before the germ theory, sexual excitation was blamed for a wide range of illnesses from paralysis to hip joint disease. And doctors actually prescribed genital cutting to control this. So male and female both entered American medicine during this time. In fact, they were so ingrained in American medicine that the Journal of Orificial Surgery proposed renaming circumcision as the American operation. So male and female circumcision actually have parallel medical histories in the United States, and both find their origins in the sexual repression of children. Other American physicians from the late 1800s proposed circumcising African American men to control their sexuality. So you might think of this campaign as something new, but actually the first mass African circumcision proposal, it appeared almost 120 years ago. This was in the Texas Medical Journal in 1889. And a physician named Peter Charles Romandino published a series of articles recommending circumcising African American men for what he described as a Negro rape problem. So this problem, of course, being informed by racist stereotypes about African men being promiscuous or hypersex. And we see this racism reflected in the present circumcision campaign. The idea that behavioral interventions like condom use and fidelity were not enough for these people, that African sexuality needed a final solution. So how did we come to the present campaign? We know that African men are stereotyped as promiscuous, and we know that proponents have been trying to make circumcision relevant to medicine for over a century. So I believe the two are linked, that Africans are being used to justify an American custom. The theories that circumcision prevents cancer and AIDS were designed to keep the medical reasons current with American health fears. In fact, in 1986, within 3 years of the discovery of the HIV virus, male circumcision was already proposed as a solution. It was a matter of time before surgical trials were conducted on Africans to prove the HIV prevention theory. And these trials were conducted not by virologists, but by circumcision advocates. And I urge all of you to look at the trials in South Africa, Uganda, and Kenya that are being used to promote the HIV prevention theory. Look at the author names, and you'll see that they come from a very familiar constellation of circumcision proponents: Alver, Moses Gray, Waller, Bailey, and so forth. These trials influenced the opinion of the World Health Organization. They reified the opinion of American medical associations, and they launched the first mass surgical campaign in human history. Many AIDS policymakers were drawn to the tempting idea that this complex epidemic could have a simple surgical solution. And simple solutions are quite fashionable in my country at the moment. But there's also a body of articles that expose major flaws within the African circumcision trials. So there's actually no scientific consensus that circumcision prevents HIV. And while the political arguments continue on both sides in the Western literature, Africans are being coerced and cut by the millions. We're not hearing their side of the story. In 2014, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and PEPFAR, which is an American government agency, announced that 6 million African men and children had been cut in the campaign. And that figure of 6 million people really resonated with me. I come from a family that was affected by the Holocaust, so 6 million was a number that came up frequently in my house. And it seemed unimaginable to me that a Holocaust-sized number of Africans had been subjected to American surgical correction, and yet the world hadn't heard a word from them. So I found this silence very chilling, and I knew that something had to be done. I founded the VMMC-Experienceproject to give these people a voice. Winston Churchill famously said that history is written by the victors, but by collecting and cataloging African experiences, we can capture a piece of this history from the victim's point of view. So the promoters may try to downplay the damage this program is causing, but they can no longer say they didn't know. And now I'd like to show a brief 4-minute video of some of what we've uncovered. So this is what Africans say when we give them a voice.
Mimi mtaalamu wa rafiki yangu ambao wanadanganya mimi atukitaje utapata selimu na tayari nimeshapata selimu.
For sure these people have died of HIV due to ignorance.
I don't know if it was a project of eradicating it or increasing it.
It's when I recognize that these people, they lied to us.
I advise my brothers and sisters, don't temper. Me, myself, I've already passed on. I know the problems and the goodness of that.
We take science honestly, but to not support what science brings to finish us, to defy our cultures, defy our rights.
The only thing that's a violation of your rights as a human.
Automatically they violated my rights.
I did it, but I didn't want it.
I was circumcised at my early age, but I had right to be somebody with authority by then. I would not allow it.
Yes. The people from the West I think they wanted to misuse the African because of misunderstanding, because people are not informed. The lack of information in Africa. So they are using other methods to make sure that we use their tools to have a place where they can exercise their power.
Sasa hii program kwa yameunga hata watoto wasalina waende hoteli kama ni jioni watatu hoteli. Sasa wewe wanakumbana ubiende ya kusoma ya hoteli wanakumbana kwa hivyo wapana bali
after I was circumcised, in fact, the sexual organ was almost rotting. I checked on him. The wound almost spread up to the lower abdomen here. So he was ever crying the whole night. And right now, even his sexual organ is not all right.
They struggled with the child, but the child nearly passed away, but he's still alive.
But there is no follow-up.
They don't care even
if you had any secondary infection, you are healing.
He went there for circumcision. They pushed these things and became here. For so big like this. And up to now, it is very difficult for the sex.
It does not work like the normal way it used to work. You have to be banned forever. In some cases, our rights.
Male circumcision as a project that has been applied for we African, it has failed to reduce HIV the way we were told. Two, we view it as a violation of human rights. How to target only one race in the entire world. Africa was targeted, and it is still being targeted. It is used as a continent they do experiment. Many evil things are done in Africa just as experiment. So I believe the entire process of trying to test it in Africa was wrong from the beginning.
Thank you very much, Tess, for this experience project. Thank you for bringing the voices of African men to Europe and to the world.